Fascinating new poll from Quinnipiac on the popularity of President Biden's new infrastructure plan. Let's throw these numbers up. This from Steve Bannon over at MSNBC. This is pretty interesting. So these numbers are actually fairly low for Biden's infrastructure plan compared to the support that I've seen in other polls. But you can see when just asked, hey, do you like this infrastructure plan? You get a plurality of support at 44% support, 38% oppose. But then when you tell respondents that part of that plan would raise taxes on corporations, suddenly the support spikes significantly. Now you have a clear majority at 53% saying, hell yes, now I like this plan, versus 39% oppose. The opposed numbers don't really move at all, 1 point, which is essentially statistically irrelevant when you inform them about the increased taxes on corporations. Very revealing and also really consistent with some of the other data and numbers that we've been looking at here with regards to how Americans feel about billionaires. We also covered the Biden's pollster, who is leaning on him to talk more about this aspect of the infrastructure plan rather than just saying, hey, we're going to pay for it and we've got this basket of tax increases. No, lean into this as an affirmative positive, not only because it actually is an affirmative positive, but because people like it. They are pissed that these billionaires and corporations got so rich and made so much money over the past year during the pandemic. They are happy to see the corporate tax rate tick back up a little bit. I mean, it's not like anything wild that Biden is proposing here. And oh, by the way, as you always point out, the flip side of that is, what was the lowest point of Trump's presidency? It was when he passed these friggin' corporate tax cuts.
He was more popular during Charlottesville.
Very revealing.
Yeah, Charlottesville was more popular than trying to repeal Obamacare and cut taxes. That is how much Americans hate repealing Obamacare or trying to cut taxes. And so, look, on the inverse of that, raising taxes on the rich is overwhelmingly popular. It never happens because of the way that elite interest is weaponized here in D.C. Matt Iglesias actually had a great piece on this about Joe Manchin, where Joe Manchin's, Joe Manchin, in one way, credit to him, it is very hard to win as a Democrat in like an R plus 45 state. That doesn't mean you have to stand for the corporate tax rate, my man. Why do the 20? There's no reason to do it, except that Joe Manchin is a younger-ish man, right? He could retire in a couple years, and he could go make a whole lot of money on K Street to lobby for these people. Actually, Iglesias even highlighted all the former Blue Dog Democrats, which have left the Senate, and each individual lobbying group who they now represent here in D.C. It's crazy. It's like Arkansas's former Democratic senator, Scott and whatever, this law firm. Indiana now lobbying for this. And it's like, well, it's a very lucrative industry, and we should always remember that these are people, these are human beings, and they want to get rich. And this is a very easy way to do it.
Is very true. And he gets a pass from the media who take this as he's just representing his state. His state doesn't want low corporate taxes.
They want minimum wage, probably more than anyone.
Right. This isn't what they are voting for or what they're hoping Joe Manchin will use his considerable power in order to. What you're going to deliver to West Virginia is a lower corporate tax rate. But he gets away with it in the media because they're so unsophisticated in understanding the different ways of being moderate and the way that people can, have ideology that doesn't line up perfectly within the Democrat or Republican Party framework. So he gets a complete pass with that. But, it was really interesting digging into some of these numbers. And again, these were actually lower numbers, these Quinnipiac numbers for Biden than I've seen in other polls. So, take that with a grain of salt, or you should think about the polling average, or you should discount Democratic support altogether because these polls seem to be consistently wrong about how much people like these Democrats. But by and large, what it shows is Americans very supportive of how he's handled coronavirus, pretty supportive of how he's handled the economy, pretty supportive on climate change, relatively split on taxes, opposed on gun policy, and really opposed on the situation at the Mexican border. And so that also gives you a window into why Republicans see that as the thing, right? And so why they're going all in on what's going on there. They sort of aren't really even making the case against infrastructure. They really didn't make much of a case against the initial relief package, and they're hoping to focus people's eyes on this one issue. And if they're successful, it's going to be a big problem for his presidency. But so far, I don't think they've really been successful when what are people really focused on right now? They just want to get back to normal. They want to feel good. They want to go out. They want to have some money in their bank accounts, get their job back, get their small business revving again, see the country coming back. And I think that's really what's dominating here and why Biden has a really strong approval rating overall, even as on a few of those sub-issues he's doing less well.
Border is his biggest vulnerability. His biggest success will be the vaccination campaign. Retail numbers we got today were insane in terms of like the explosion there.
Almost 10%
spike, and stimulus checks are in people's bank accounts. Economy is going to be hot. I really believe that. And so how those two things will contradict each other, it's going to be very interesting.
All right, more Rising for you after this.